Thank you. It's a wonderful introduction. I don't get that at the UN every day for some reason. I don't know. What's going on? Thank you, Charlotte. Let me begin by recognizing the leadership of Haaretz and the New Israel Fund for co-hosting this conference, as well as the range of Israeli officials and Knesset members in the audience this afternoon. There are many officials. I also want to recognize PLO Secretary General Saab Erekat. And it is an honor to share the stage this afternoon with Ayman Odeh, leader of the Joint List. I'm happy also to have had the chance just now to catch up a little bit with Tzipi Livni, who has been so relentless in the pursuit of peace. Lastly, to all of those celebrating, I'd like to extend wishes for a happy Hanukkah. As you all know, a key theme of this conference is democracy. One of the many beliefs that the United States and Israel share is that a free and vibrant press is essential to a healthy democracy, both through informing citizens and holding accountable the governments they elect. As Thomas Jefferson once famously wrote, "Were it left to me to decide whether we should have a government without newspapers or newspapers without government, I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter." It will come as no surprise to you all that I am an avid believer in the value of a robust press. I'm biased, of course. I began my career as a journalist covering the wars in the Balkans. But if anything, my appreciation of the press's critical importance has only increased since I started working in government 7 years ago. Despite what can at times feel, honestly, like a pummeling, our policies are improved every single day by hearing from the press, which can tell us what is happening outside what can often feel like a bubble. Haaretz has long understood strengthening Israel's democracy as part of its mission. Publisher Amos Shakin said that it was the aim of his father, Gershom, who edited Haaretz for more than 50 years, from 1939 to 1990, quote, "to create a newspaper that would provide its readers with whatever information an active member of a modern democracy needs," end quote. For Haaretz, a key element of delivering that information has been trying to capture for its readers the perspectives of people in Israel from communities different than their own, communities they otherwise may have very little contact with, if any at all. It has meant, for example, embedding reporters in Palestinian communities as well as in Israeli communities, so as to be able to reflect the hardships, fears, and hopes of people living on all sides. And let me take a moment to recognize the leadership that Amos has demonstrated, together with Aluf Ben, in insisting that Haaretz hold fast. We need a UN that is a model of equal treatment and anti-discrimination at a time when we are seeing an alarming rise around the world in anti-Semitism. As you all know, anti-Semitism is surging by every objective measure: reported harassment, polling data, violent attacks, posing a threat not only to Jewish communities around the world, but to liberalism and to pluralism everywhere. Even in Ireland, where Chaim Herzog and I both spent our childhood years, the Belfast building, where he was born in 1918, which was marked with a simple plaque celebrating his birth, was defaced with anti-Israel graffiti. And one group of vandals even tried to pry off the plaque with a crowbar. It got so bad that last year, the plaque had to be taken down by local officials. Bougie Herzog, I think, was here earlier, and I can only imagine how painful it was and has been for his family to know that haters would not even leave a plaque to Chaim Herzog alone. This surge in hate is why it is so important that in January of this year, we joined Israel and the European Union in sponsoring the first ever meeting on anti-Semitism in the UN. And it took place in the very same chamber where the Zionism is Racism resolution was passed 40 years before. More than 50 countries and organizations came together to condemn this horrific problem and pledged to take concrete and urgent steps to confront it. Implementation and follow-through is key, but this is the role the UN can and must play. Now, the other area in which the United States has been a partner to Israel is in our efforts to achieve a lasting peace between Israel and the Palestinians, as well as between Israel and its Arab neighbors. President Obama's commitment to achieving a two-state solution has been unwavering, and it has been driven by his deeply held conviction, as he said in Jerusalem in March of 2013 and has repeated consistently since, that, as he puts it, peace is necessary, just, and possible. We believe that to this day, and we remain committed to Israel's future as a secure, democratic, and Jewish state. And we are committed to an independent and viable Palestinian state where Palestinians can live with freedom and with dignity. We are under no illusions that achieving peace will be easy. We know that it will take a dedicated commitment by both parties and a willingness on the part of leaders to make tough choices. We also know that it is up to both Israelis and Palestinians to take the steps necessary to make it possible and to ensure that words are backed up by actions. But the reality is that we have not seen a sufficient commitment to make these tough choices from either side in recent years, despite ongoing U.S. efforts to bridge the differences between the parties. The recent violence has been terrifying, and we have been clear that it must stop. There is never and will never be any justification for attacks targeting civilians. We condemn these attacks in the strongest possible terms and mourn for the victims and their families. Victims like 18-month-old Ali Dawabshe, who was killed along with his parents by the firebombing of his family's home in Duma in July. And victims like Richard Lakin, a 76-year-old Israeli-American citizen, English teacher to Jewish and Arab students, and grandfather of 8 who was killed as the result of a stabbing attack on a public bus in Jerusalem in mid-October. Those responsible for these and other deplorable attacks must be held accountable, and the attackers must be unequivocally condemned by leaders on all sides and by people everywhere around the world. Let me, for a moment, speak not as a diplomat, but as a mother. I have 2 children, a 6-year-old boy, Declan, and a 3-year-old, Rian, and I cannot imagine what it must feel like for mothers or fathers to see their kids off every morning and worry that they might not make it home. An Israeli 10th grader recently told one reporter, "I'm petrified. Children are scared to leave the house. They won't go to the shop or walk around the neighborhood." A Palestinian father said, "I don't feel safe. The best strategy for me was to keep the children home from school." In Jerusalem, an Israeli shopkeeper described a wholly new mode of interaction with customers who, quote, came, bought, and fled, end quote. He explained, people are afraid. And a Palestinian shopkeeper in the old city said, "When I prepare the juice, I'm scared to cut the oranges in case someone sees me with the knife and shoots me." I understand that this fear can be extremely powerful, overwhelming even. Look at recent events in the United States. Following the horrific attack in San Bernardino, we have seen how acts of terror not only spur legitimate fear, but also can be used by some cynical political actors to stoke prejudice and hatred. But as one of the great UN diplomats, Sergio Vieira de Mello, who unfortunately, tragically was killed by a suicide bomber in Iraq, once said, "Fear is a bad advisor." Fear is a bad advisor. And that is true whether our fears are born out of genuine anguish about rising violence or for some other reason. Fear is a bad advisor. As we have said publicly and privately to both sides, ongoing attacks like these, incitement to violence, settlement activity, home demolitions, and other current trends are endangering the viability of a two-state solution. They must be stopped and reversed in order to prevent a one-state reality from taking hold.